Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Take This. Today we have video, and we have lots of news to talk about, including this insane high school story that literally just broke this week, and we have to talk about the Mets. We've got to talk about the Mets, and it's the Mets versus the fans. Let's do it. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in on a Tuesday. Today is a great day, hopefully. Griff, we have video. I think at least that's what
video. Hello.
That's what the plan is. Now, hopefully,
We'll see how it goes.
Right, exactly. See how it goes. That is the plan. For just the information about that, people can still listen on the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, etc. Just go to our link tree is, Take This Pod. You can also go to anchor.fm/takethispod. It's like a whole thing. And we're also on YouTube, hopefully with a link TBA. And if you're watching the video, I just want to make a couple notes about my house. My dog barks a lot, and my cat is in the background. So that's exciting. And
yeah, I'm just going to make a note about mine. Behind me is my fiance's desk where she does her makeup and such, as well as her Sailor Moon poster and her, she's got a wig and shit. But, that's not important. The important thing is you can see us get angry at each other, which might happen today, Brad, because of what we're talking about. I think we were getting a little mad at each other last night when we originally talked about this. Although my tune has changed slightly.
So, and I feel the same way, and I want to talk about that a little bit. One thing I did want to, before we jump in, my girlfriend works till 8, and then she drives home. I think it's 8:15. So and it's 7:48 right now for anyone, So she'll be walking home, and that'll be fun because I haven't told her that the video's on. So we'll see how that goes. But
you really decided to make this as chaotic as possible.
I did. It's the worst. I am the worst, and I keep looking at myself like, I don't know. It's been a minute since I've recorded any video of anything, but I did want to talk about. I wanted to start with the Mets, and I know you were talking about how it's hard, right? With just the situation in general, because it was stressing me out, and I wasn't really sure what to make of it. And then I heard what other people thought about the situation. And that's often the case, right? Where in the moment of something that's happening, it's hard to gain enough perspective to really understand or formulate sort of an opinion that's sort of kind of middle of the road, right? It's hard to gain that perspective when something is happening. When people are traumatized, you can't, while that trauma is happening, you don't have any way to look back on that because it's happening right now. But after a few years, and in this instance, it's a few hours, things start happening and events transpire, and you're kind of able to look back on something as this is what I actually think. It's hard again, everything feels like an overreaction right now regarding the Mets, and it is
because it's New York sports.
Well, yeah, I was actually I didn't listen to any New York radio today at all. I was actually listening to Chicago. Fun fact. They have, 670 The Score. I was listening to them talk about it because they were interested in it because of Javier Baez being involved, right? So for anyone who's unaware of the situation, and I don't know how you're not, the Mets have had they have great fans, right? Great time. But New York sports fans, New York's up within those cities with Philadelphia, Boston, like those cities that are very like harsh, right? And then you got cities like Detroit
Very
or
passionate
Chicago
fans.
where like these cities are still passionate, but like Detroit and Chicago are like the nicest cities, right? Like booing isn't going to happen there and it might. Like I've seen it happen with the Lions and the Bears.
It has definitely happened at a Lions game.
Well, absolutely. But wouldn't you agree to?
It was at Thanksgiving last year when they put up the big sell the team flag. I remember, and that got on Fox. I remember that was a big deal.
Well, and that kind of brings me into that point though too, where like it's almost like football and baseball booing is fundamentally different. At least that's what I've noticed. Like when fans boo it at a football game, it usually tends to be directed towards management. I mean, you saw, and there's a few exceptions, but the main thing was like you saw the sell the team stuff with the Lions. Like I don't think that I've ever seen. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever seen Matthew Stafford get booed. I know Mitch Trubisky's been booed at the Bears games. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but I feel like it's more, and again, there's like 11 guys out there. So like, it's really hard to be the only guy on the field in a football game that's like terrible, whereas like in baseball, like, I mean, if you hit into a double play, like, yeah, and your offense is terrible, like the Mets have been terrible, you're probably going to get booed. And booing happens. It's happened forever. So we know that. But, like, on the other hand, the way I look at it, too, is, like, yeah, this offense sucks. Like, it's not great. Like, Mets fans have not had much to watch. So, like, yeah, it's going to happen. But also, like, if you're a player, you don't have to like that. Like, that's not, and yeah, you could just play better. Like, that's, it's not rocket science. But, like, there's a couple things, and I want to finish up and then go to you, but there's a couple things at play here with me. And, I mean, it comes down to both Javier Baez and Francisco Lindor. Like, I think also it has to do with the way management handled the situation. And I think, like, honestly, Javier Baez, like, yeah, he could have answered the question a little bit better. But at the same time, like, he was asked a question and he answered it. So it's, you know what I mean? And I feel like if he never hit that leadoff home run, or not leadoff home run, but the one that put them in the lead, he would never have been asked the question. But, and Javier Baez probably didn't even come up with this celebration where they do the thumbs down to the crowd. Like, it was probably like Lindor or it could have been Kevin Pillar. Like, it could have been anyone on that team, but Javier Baez takes the fall because he was the guy that answered the question. Now, I also think that management didn't really do like a great job at responding either, with Sandy Alderson being like throwing the hammer down on his team, being like, that's not great. I mean, it's not great, but like at the same time, like a better statement could have, I don't know, not fueled the fire, because I feel like that just added it to the flames.
Yeah, but I mean, basically, it's a shit show. It's never good when you basically have your fans and the players are beefing, and then because of that beefing, you now have to get management to step in, and management has to actively pick a side and shoot down their players. That only hurts your team. That makes the players feel disrespected. I saw people saying, like, no one's going to want to come and play here if this is how management, defends the players. Well, other people are saying, well, if you go after the fans, that hurts the team's financial stuff. And it's just a mess. Really, I mean, are the fans in New York being too harsh? Probably a little. I get it.
At the same time, though, and I know I felt different about this, right? At the same time, like, shit happens, right? Like people do a lot of stuff that I wouldn't do at a baseball game, but I'm also someone that doesn't drink at all. Like, I'm just someone that doesn't drink, right? So, like, when you have people who have had, like, 10 beers, shit's gonna happen. Like the last baseball game I went to, it's been way too long, but I went to a Tigers game in 2016 on a date, and like way too long since I've been to an MLB game, by the way. I have to put that out there. I want to go back so bad. But again, like I was in the back by the bullpen out in the outfield, and Tigers bullpen's in left field, and there was this guy like 4 rows ahead of us who was like heckling the opposing team's bullpen. I mean, it was hilarious. Like, he was calling balls and strikes in the bullpen, and I thought that was so funny. But at the same time, like, I'm not gonna act like that because I'm not drunk. I'm not gonna get drunk at a baseball game. So
right.
Like, that's just a different experience. But like, for a guy that's had 10 beers, you drive to the game, and I don't know, like, if you live in New York, it might have taken 4 hours to get to the game, and you walk in and your team is hitting like 3 runs a game. Like, the Mets have had such a bad like fate too. Like, think about this too, is their average run per game is less than 3, especially in the last half of the year. And on top of that, they have only lost, I think it is like 13 games. They're like 20 something. I think it's like 25 or so and 13 when they score more than 4 runs. Like, imagine if they score 4 runs every game. Like, they would definitely be in first place. So I think that when you watch this team and you consider, you continue to see them hit into double play after double play, strikeout after strikeout. Javier Baez having a high strikeout rate probably doesn't help. And you see all of this, like, yeah, you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to probably, like, especially, again, if you've had a few to drink, like, you're probably going to be like, yeah, boo this team. I don't know. I wouldn't do it, but I'm just saying that that's going to be how fans react.
Yeah, like, I see the argument there. I think my thing is, like, if you're, like, you got to remember, a lot of people that go to these games, like, there's a lot of season ticket holders. And so, like, these are people who paid their money for their tickets. It's not like they knew the team was bad now and decided to go and boo anyway. And there are people who are doing that. Don't get me wrong. But there's also a large number that are people who have slowly watched this team implode. And even on TV they have. And they're saying, why? And, they blame, the guys that are, boom or bust in terms of their batting. And obviously Lindor got paid a shit ton. Those guys are always going to be the biggest ones with targets on their back for that reason, especially if those people already had prejudices against the signings in general. That's only fuel to the fire. I think the biggest thing here is, fans, when they go, if you are putting out a subpar product, especially after collapsing in a way where you were first in the division for so long and then implode in a way that you do, fans are going to be frustrated. And there's nothing that you can do to fix it except win. And so, the fans, and they weren't winning. So the fans booed. They were frustrated, and they were voicing their frustration to the team. Yeah, it doesn't fix anything. The team knows they're bad. And, New York is a harsh market.
It is. I think what's interesting, and this is
I think for Baez and Lindor and them to turn around and turn it into something, like, players are people. They're allowed to defend themselves. I just think the gesture was the issue. I have no issue with them saying, hey, we don't like that our fans boo us. Like, you want to just say that in a press conference, be like, hey, we don't like this. We don't like when people boo us. We're trying our asses off out here to win games, and yeah, we're not winning them, and trust me, we're just as frustrated. But to come out and make a gesture and be kind of petty with it, it just feels, I don't want to say immature. I mean, it is, but like all of this is immature. Let's be real. It just seems like it's just a bad look. And then, you got the team president coming down and then treating them like they're kids. It's like, these are grown men. Let them do what they want. Like, I get it's your brand, but coming down on them like that is not going to make the relationship
Yeah, I mean,
relationships here better.
Steve Cohen said something too to the New York Post, and the New York Post came out with this like weird article that was like the Mets like problem isn't Baez, it's Lindor, and it's just like I don't even know how to read that. The weird part for me though too is like now you know that Javier Baez isn't coming back. Like there's no way in hell that he does now. Basically not many players want to stick around after basically calling World War III on their fans. But like, I don't think that Baez is that bad. Like in terms of like just his play as a person. And a lot of people are like, yeah, he hasn't been that great as a Met. And I understand too that he was a trade acquisition, so you're going to expect more from a trade acquisition, because you get him, like you want him to produce because you want him to help your team make that playoff push. But like, he's been the factor in at least 4 wins, like since he's been, and he was out on the injury. He was out with like a day-to-day injury, I think, for about a week. So like of the month that he's been with the Mets, yeah, he's been on the bench for a while, and then he's been the factor in a few of the wins. But like his high strikeout rate, I feel like is irrelevant since he has like 28 home runs. I don't think that, like, I'm not worried about his play since his average is fine. I think that there's other players on the Mets who could be to blame. And I mean, even if you say like he hasn't been great as a Met, that's such a small sample size. You can't say that some dude has like a 3-week performance and can, consider how he plays. Like I think if Javier Baez is, I think if his relationship with the fans did like this shit didn't happen, I absolutely think the Mets should have re-signed him. I didn't understand why Mets fans hated Baez so much, because he's not. People act like he's this like mediocre player. I mean, at worst, he's this above average guy, and I don't know. Like, it's just so weird. And I wrote this thing. Maybe this is like the Detroit or Midwest in me talking about it or whatever, but I was saying how, like, even when the Mets were in first place, how much were we expecting from this team? And I'm not saying that, like, because I'm not saying it in, like, a defeatist way, but I mean, like, this team wasn't great when they were in first place, is my point. Like, you could consider this team a rebuild team. Like if you go to football in the NFC East, what did Washington win that division? Do you really think that team like is a championship contender? Like, even if the Mets won, I mean the best they had to get was like past the first round. So I just think that like when you consider that outlook, like I don't know, was I saving myself from like disappointment when this inevitably happened? Because you can only keep up 3.2 runs per game for so long. So like when you have if this happens for so long, it's not like, this team was going places, or, I mean, yeah, they could have turned it around, but like, I don't see how this team was ever that good. So people are acting like they suddenly imploded. They weren't great from the beginning, and it just so happened that Atlanta made enough moves to get good at the deadline. And Philadelphia made moves to improve their bullpen. The Mets only got Baez, that's it. And so when you consider that they did so little, and yeah, that's frustrating for me. Because, yeah, I mean, they needed to do more at the deadline. If they didn't, their season was in jeopardy. They didn't do enough at the deadline, and look where they are. I don't know what to tell people. Why people are acting surprised.
Get angry, Brett.
I just don't get it.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't understand.
No, I mean, they made a lot of mistakes. Let's be real. All the Mets had to, the Mets... Would you argue they should have won this division?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And
okay.
What's crazy to me too is that, so if you're going to talk about the NL East in general, the fun part about that is that the Philadelphia Phillies should, in every situation, in every 99 times to 1, they should absolutely win this division. Now, because they have the easiest schedule in baseball, they have the pieces to make it happen, and yet they're 5 games back in the division behind the Atlanta Braves. If they, and I said this like 2 weeks ago, if they don't win this division, this season is a failure for Philadelphia, and it's going to end up being one. I don't understand why Philly isn't in first place. I do think that without the Mets implosion, I do think that they should have won this division. It also doesn't help that they played like the Dodgers and the Giants for 13 straight. Like that doesn't help them. But yeah, they had a hard schedule. But, like, that's no excuse, because another thing that you look at when you look at those 13 games, 7 of those 11 losses in that run were all by 1 run. So one hit could have changed the outcome of that game tremendously. The pitching was good enough to win that game, but the offense lost it for them. And that's the worst part about it all, is that they could have won at least 4 or 5 more of those games.
Yep, and I think, I don't know, the Mets are just such, like, they're so interesting because they have all the pressure of, like, a New York sports team like the Yankees, but they're also, they just don't have, like, that history of success. And, you know, I think Steve Cohen, and when I say his, like, you know, and like relative to the Yankees, right? And I think and especially in the last, 10 to 15 years under previous ownership, and I do think Steve Cohen can right this ship, and I think they'll be better. Like, I think next year, they kind of reset themselves, but I think you're right. I don't think they get Baez back, and I thought they could have signed him, and I thought they should have signed him. I think they need to get rid of Luis Rojas and get a new manager that can help this talent get more out of this talent than he's getting.
So I think, like, I just want to wrap things up with this, specifically regarding the Mets. And, like, again, this is like, because I feel it feels so bad, right, to talk about a team for so long and then not, like, offer anything, like, optimistic about it. And I mean, there's places for that, but I think that what's crazy too is that people are saying, like, this is the same old Mets. Like, you talked about it, how the Yankees have that history, but they were a team, like, for so long, whereas the Mets have only existed since 1962. They were the first expansion team in the MLB, and then even when they expanded, it wasn't great. Like, they have the worst. They still have the worst record in the NL. Like, historically, I think it's like, the only team that has been comparable to them is the 2003 Tigers, which is not great. But it's weird, right? It's hard to say because, like, Steve Cohen, in any situation, when you have a new manager or a new owner come in, like, there's that optimism there. Like, because a lot of these guys are rich. Well, all of them are rich, but they're not going to settle for in a new regime. They're not going to, like, just fail immediately, a lot of the time. Like, you saw the 2012 Dodgers had an underwhelming season, and then the next year they did some great things. But, I still think that, like, this team isn't the same old team. Like, it seems like it is because Mets fans are so conditioned to losing. And I don't know. It just doesn't feel the same. So I just think that you shouldn't count. I still think Steve Cohen has the mentality to make this team what it is, especially since he grew up as a Mets fan. So there's that to look forward to. I don't know. I think that that people should have a little bit more optimism. But right now, yeah, it's frustrating to watch. And it's not great. It's not great.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement, and I think the Mets need to get better. I think they need to, and I think they will. I think they'll kind of get their shit together, but they also just need. I think the fans need to be a little understanding, and understand that booing doesn't help anything. And I think really it only just makes their fan base in the city of New York look worse. Again, I think they have every right to do it. But I personally, I'm just like, hey guys, a lot of people aren't on your side, and you're not helping anything, and you don't, you just don't look good. It is not a good PR look for anyone involved. So I hope they can just get past this, and Lindor can turn into be the generational superstar he needs to be, and the Mets can just win a World Series, and all will be forgiven. It's just that easy.
Right. So Griff, do you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a quick break, and we're gonna talk about college football, and we gotta talk about this Bishop Sycamore situation, which is literally developing. Still kind of like more information is coming out as we're recording, but we'll talk about everything we know so far because it's kind of fucking crazy. So yeah, we'll talk about that right after this break. And welcome back. So Brad, first, technically last weekend was our first real taste of college football, although in a small sample size. This upcoming weekend is our first full-blown weekend back into the college football world.
You know what I was doing on Saturday?
What was that?
Watching Canadian football. Because at the time, so I went out. We Katie and I ordered Mexican that night, and we go to this one place. They always forget our food, but we forgive them every time. It's like a whole thing, but.
Why do you keep going back?
So it's so dumb. It's ridiculous actually. So it's good food. It's fine. But every time they always forget Katie's food. Never mind. And she's the one that gets these vegan fajitas, and I just get a bean. I get three things: a bean burrito, cheese quesadilla, and I think it's a fajita. I don't know. But then she gets this vegetarian something tacos or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, there's vegan tacos, whatever. But then we both order a guac, and I get a bean and cheese dip. Guac for her, bean and cheese dip for me. But it's just kind of funny because the first time they forgot the guac, I forget what they forgot the second time, but I feel like they forgot something. I don't know. And then they forgot our food again, but it was hers. What was it? It was her vegan tacos, her actual meal. So I went out to get it. I came home, and then she's like, "My food's not here." And I called them, and they said they'll remake it. So I drove back, and this is 15 minutes away. So it's a drive. But
Brett, I gotta ask where the hell this is going.
Well, anyway. So I'm getting off the rails. So we order Mexican, and I asked Katie if we could postpone our movie to next week that we were planning on watching, and I asked her if she wanted to watch Canadian football with me. Now, have you ever watched Canadian football?
Yes, it's very weird.
Okay, so it's amazing. Every time I years ago I was friends with someone who was Canadian, and he was obsessed with Canadian football. Now, if you hit on a kickoff, if you hit the ball or kick the ball across the uprights, that's a point. So you'll see games that are 9-8 or 3-1. It's the weirdest thing. Or my favorite, I think, is that there's 3 downs instead of 4, and on top of that, the players at the line of scrimmage have to stand or I think it's a few feet away from each other. So the collision has a lot more impact. So it's a lot more physical at the line of scrimmage, because instead of it's a couple inches in the NFL and college, whereas in the CFL they're back a few feet. So you got this huge collision, and there's also virtually no running, because again, they only have two downs to throw it, and then they punt. So it's a wild game. It's really interesting. And then I turned it off, but I enjoyed my football. That's all. That's my point.
So that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about.
No, not at all. I had to talk. I know. I wanted to talk about Canadian football. I will watch it every day of the week if I could.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm sorry if I'm boring you.
No, I thought that was gonna go.
No, it's not. No, when have I ever needed? When does anything I say go anywhere?
It doesn't.
Whatever.
It doesn't.
Whatever.
Anyway, so basically.
Yeah, interesting story.
Yeah, cool story, bro. So the interesting thing that happened this last weekend would be the Nebraska-Illinois game, where Nebraska had a late game lead and blew it. Like, because it's Nebraska and Scott Frost is a complete and total fraud, and he's going to be gone after this season, right? Like, at this point, I don't think there's any chance he's still here after the end of this season.
Yeah, probably not. No, we talked about this too. In that, like, the whole thing's like a shit show.
Yeah,
like you're supposed to be that guy for Nebraska,
and
he's just not.
Like I would honestly want Jim Harbaugh over Frost, because at least Harbaugh is a big name that can get like recruits,
right?
Over like Scott Frost, and Harbaugh doesn't lose to fucking Illinois. He's been close, but he hasn't lost to Illinois,
right?
So. That's the only time you'll ever hear me say anything that nice about Jim Harbaugh. But yeah, it's bad. It's bad. But let's take a look forward to this week.
So,
because I think there's some fun games.
I think, yeah. I mean, I'm excited. Just to kind of get this like Michigan State rebuild underway. I think that's my what I'm most excited for. Kind of see like Mel Tucker in action, maybe. Actually, here's a question for you. How many upsets I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Do you think Mel Tucker is capable of an upset this season? And what is the team that he's most likely to do it against?
He's going to beat Michigan.
Again? I mean, okay. Now, that I don't think that counts. That's not an upset.
No, it's
ESPN fan predictor gives Michigan State the edge.
That's the fan predictor.
No, not the fan predictor, matchup predictor. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
I don't care there's no way that Michigan State is favored over Michigan in that
It was
game.
52-87 or 52-50. No, 52-48%.
I don't care what their thing says. I want to know what's the Vegas odds.
Oh. Let's find out. Vegas. Michigan State. FanDuel. Let's talk about it.
Michigan is favored. Oh wait, this is basketball.
Will they have it?
Yeah.
Like, is the spread available yet? It's like 6 weeks away. Not even. It's probably like 8 weeks away. Actually, I don't know. I could be wrong. Michigan State versus Michigan. This is 2020. Yeah, not fun.
Maybe they don't. I thought they would have had early odds out.
No, they have the Western Michigan and Michigan odds. But ESPN's matchup predictor has Michigan State beating Michigan.
Again, I think they'll beat. I think Michigan State could beat Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's a toss-up.
Mel Tucker's in his first fucking year, like his first real year.
Right.
It's an upset if he wins. It was an upset last year, and it's an upset again this year. He's 1 year.
By the way,
he's had one real year.
So last time I checked, and I don't know how, this is according to ESPN's Football Power Index. So I don't know what this is based on in the algorithm that they use, and ESPN isn't great. But so last time I checked this was about 3 weeks ago. It was Michigan State had 52 to 48% odds to win. Okay, so it was close. That has increased to 54.8% Michigan State.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
I mean, it's fair. But like,
I also think rivalry games are a lot closer, just because they're rivalry games.
Yeah, that's true.
Like in general, I think that rivalry games in college are the closest thing you can get to the NFL, in the sense that like every NFL game is close.
So here's what Michigan State. Do you know what their win total over under number is?
Tell me.
4. You know what Michigan's? That's Michigan State's. You know what Michigan's is?
What?
8.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying I would never say that Michigan State's the better team. Like, I don't think that that's true. I just think that Michigan has a chance to lose that game. And because it's a rivalry game also, I don't think that it would be considered like a big upset. Like, I'm not counting on Michigan State to win, but I still think it's a toss-up.
Is Michigan beating Ohio State an upset?
Absolutely, because Michigan has never shown that they can beat Ohio State. So
rivalry game, that point is mute. That doesn't matter. It depends on how good the teams are and who. I guess, but
do you think Michigan's good?
No.
Oh, okay,
no, but
I guess
they should. Here's the thing. Here's what it is, right? Michigan should beat Michigan State. So if Michigan State beats Michigan, it's an upset. And I think like I said, Michigan is the better team and therefore should beat Michigan State.
Yeah, that's true. And
if I'm being honest, with where Harbaugh should be in this program, they should not lose.
No, it should be a cakewalk, especially considering how D'Antonio set Michigan State back like at least 10 years.
Yeah, so no, Sparty, but I think Sparty wins that. I think they'll beat one of the better. I think they have a shot against Northwestern this week.
Okay.
They've actually moved to only being a field goal underdog versus Northwestern.
Really?
And I think they started. It was way
because I don't think there's no way that I don't know actually. Yeah, that's hard.
The over under is 45 plus 130 for Michigan.
Northwestern also isn't ranked.
Yeah, but they were one of the more decent teams in the Big Ten West last year.
Right.
And here's the thing: they're literally their under over is 4. Every win they get is going to be huge because every win they get is probably defying an expectation in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
So it's really just going to be a matter of, does Mel Tucker get his guys to show up and play hard? I think and from what I'm seeing from the recruits, and granted, I don't take they got this 5-star recruit or blah, blah, blah. I don't really care because, I don't really care what you do until you step onto a college field, right? Mm-hmm. You could be the best. Michigan has had all these 5, 6, whatever star recruits for the last 10 years, and they haven't won shit. So I don't care. So I need to see, actual results. But from what I've seen, they've been recruiting well, and that's the first step in actually being able to win something.
Yeah, I think wouldn't you agree though too that Michigan has an issue with development? Like I feel like that's a big thing because turning in because I feel like it's not hard for Michigan at this point because of the brand that they have to be a 15 school. Michigan on ESPN right now is ranked 3rd in the Big Ten and 16th in the nation. Now, their previous ranking was 13, so it's gone down, and it could change up and down all the time. But I also think it's not hard to see Michigan in the top 20. That should be a no-brainer. Michigan State's number 20. But I feel like where those prospects go from when they sign to when they get on the field, I feel like that's a different story. And how because you saw, I feel like Shea Patterson was absolutely a better player than he was at Michigan. And I feel like at Michigan, he was ruined because of Shea Patterson. Because of Jim Harbaugh. I just feel like there. Yeah,
I just don't think Shea. I did not like Shea Patterson.
No, I didn't like him either.
The day he came, I don't think he was any good.
No.
He was playing for a crooked school, and he, the only reason he was able to come and play for Michigan immediately was because he did the transfer portal, and he didn't have to wait the year because he basically got a lawyer, and the lawyer was like, well, he didn't know he was playing for a corrupt school, and he shouldn't be punished for that, and that's why he was able to play right away, which I don't believe for a fucking second that was the goddamn case. And then he came here, and he played like ass for 3 years. Dude could not throw a football.
No, I mean, you saw him in the Senior Bowl. I saw there was this one pass, this is ingrained in my memory. He drops back to throw, and he's doing. I think the receiver was doing like a what's it called? Like a post? Post route. Like run. It was actually an over underneath. Like, you know, one receiver runs out, like, and then the other receiver runs out like 10 yards deeper, and they both run across the field. But so what happened is he threw the ball to the dude running across the field, and he overthrew him. And where because this guy was wide open, like the dude was wide open, but 10 yards back was I think it was a safety who was covering the other guy that was running like across the field as well in the opposite direction, and he ended up intercepting the ball because the ball was overthrown.
Right. Yeah.
Either that or it was a shitty throw. But it seemed like it would have been harder to miss that throw than it would to just throw it to the guy. But that's just, I don't know. That's just the epitome of his career. That was what you saw. And there's no wonder he didn't get drafted. Then he got signed by Kansas City, and they cut him because he sucks.
Yeah. No, not good.
No, I mean, not. But I have one more bold prediction before we go on to this this weird chaotic story. I think Michigan State beats Penn State this year.
Ooh,
that's my bold prediction, and if I get it wrong, that's fine. If I get it wrong, fine. But if I get it right, I'm gonna be like millionaire. That's what I'm gonna be.
No, listen. I think. That's fair. I don't think Penn State's that good, and I think
no, I don't either. And it's a home game for Michigan State. Like if that game was at Penn State, like there's no way Michigan State walks out there like losing by less than 14. Like I think that's a blowout if you're in Penn State, but that's just because it's in Penn State.
Yeah. By the way, some, I guess, kind of breaking news. Yeah, this was tweeted earlier today, apparently, and I didn't see this. The SEC announces if a team is unable to play due to COVID, they forfeit. If both teams are unable to compete due to COVID, both will earn an L.
That's insane. That's crazy, and that's wild because it's in the South. Like that is not. That's crazy. Like, I feel like you could get away with that rule in the Big Ten, but SEC fans are going to be pissed.
Well, here's the people are already saying, yeah, until Alabama's about to be in the title game and something that's fucked up, I bet you. And I wouldn't be surprised if they bent the rule for it. We'll wait and see. It's a bold stance. Those schools have, like, some of the worst, like, COVID vaccination rates in the country, so we will see, and maybe that'll catalyze people to actually do it.
I mean, maybe.
They'll do anything for their football. So I want to talk about this Bishop Sycamore situation because this is kind of insane. It's literally all kind of coming out today. So ESPN has been airing high school football games kind of leading up to all the football season starting. And it was like the ESPN or Geico high school football something presented by ESPN. Basically, they were just airing high school football games. And they aired a game between IMG Academy, which is like one of the great, like best high schools in the country. A ton of like recruits come from this school and go to like Bama, Florida State, blah, 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 blah. All these, they go to all the SEC schools. They get they're just a college football
second in the country, right?
Producing machine. I think first, maybe second. They're up there, right?
Right.
Like that's pretty damn good. So IMG Academy is going against this school called Bishop Sycamore, who IMG Academy has gone up against a few times before. Now, here's the thing. ESPN and their agencies, mainly the agencies they hire that put this together, not ESPN itself, did no research on this Bishop Sycamore. The school, quote unquote, we'll get to why that's in quotes, went 0-6 last year, scoring 42 total points and giving up a total of 227 in 6 games. They played a game 2 days before their ESPN loss, where they lost 58-0. ESPN couldn't verify any of their players in their scouting databases. Most of the players on these teams are JUCO dropouts aged 19 and over. At least one player was using a fake name and lied about his recruiting status. More, their head coach had an active warrant for his arrest. Bishop Sycamore High School does not exist and has no record of existing in the Ohio High School Athletic Association's history. OHSAA's history. They're based out of a Texas league, the TCAL. Let's see. Bishop Sycamore is still scheduled to play Duncanville on September 10th. Scrolling down a bit. There was a GoFundMe to help fund the Bishop Sycamore program earlier in the year. They had a goal of $20,000. They made $140,000. Bishop Sycamore's website is literally like a blogspot page, with mainly like there's just like no information there. It looks as like silly as you think. They like if you watch them like play and come out onto the field, it's just I've never seen like such a disorganized football team. It's kind of crazy. By the way, the company was Paragon Marketing Group is the one who vetted Bishop Sycamore, supposedly. Scrolling through here, just looking at. There's a lot of information.
There's one thing that says
they played a game. They played a game Friday where they played in their black uniforms against another team who was also wearing their dark uniforms. It literally looks like it, which is awful and dangerous. So here's where it gets really interesting, Brad. And it wasn't interesting enough so far. Bishop Sycamore didn't exist until 2019 in most cases.
Right.
You know why? Because they had been previously known as Christians of Faith, and they were a scamming shit show in and of itself.
So
there was no school, they had no education system, unknown player statuses, no home stadium, no website, and phone line led to a full voicemail box.
So something that's interesting too is like, so if you go like looking into this, the Ohio Department of Education has no charter school by that name. But last year they listed Bishop Sycamore as a non-chartered, non-tax supported school, and which is a type of school, obviously because of religious beliefs, chose not to be chartered by the state board of education. But what's interesting though is that non-chartered schools in Ohio are like required to report student participation and attendance to their local school district, like the treasurer, as a matter of like convenience for the parents, for example. Right. And I mean, there's also like, regular procedures from promotion from grade to grade. So they're not like on different from like a charter school. Like in that regard, I mean, I have like weird feelings about charter schools in general, but like
But Brad, that's the thing. This isn't even this isn't a school though.
There's
no
thing.
School.
Their address is 3599 Chiller Lane in Columbus, which is the address of Resolute Athletic Complex, which is an indoor sports facility near Easton Town Center. I know exactly where that is, actually. Fun fact. But anyway.
It's not a school. Like, and here's the other thing. So this Christians of Faith school, that was what basically Bishop Sycamore was before becoming Bishop Sycamore. So no school, no education system, unknown player status, no stadium, no website, no phone, no way of contact. Everything went to shit. COF finished 1-11 on the year in 2019 or 20 or 2018 or 2019. Their only win was against Brother Rice, which is a Michigan school, which Fuck you, Brother Rice. Although I don't like Catholic Central either, but that's a different story. I don't like the private schools around here. The head coach changed his phone number in September and fucked off after the season in November. They're no longer considered an academic institution in mid-September of last year. But as we keep digging, it keeps getting better. A game had been canceled as early as September 22nd. They never held classes at all. They lied about it. No one ever received an official roster from the school. But wait, there's so much more. COF's leadership had told officials that the African Methodist Episcopalian Church, Episcopalian Church, yeah, sure, that's good enough for me, was educating the students at a private academy. Roy Johnson said he was a business director for the Richard Allen Group, a financial arm of the church. Roy Johnson, by the way, being the coach of this team. Are you ready for the punchline? The African Methodist Episcopalian Church had no affiliation with Christians of Faith Academy. The school and its leaders were using them to grift, be it by means of loans or duping schools into playing them. These coaches weren't just caught in 4K, they were caught in 400K. And there was because the thing is, there was other coaches and other teams who wanted to play them. Again, IMG wanted to played Sycamore twice a year because it would be a good way for them to get tape for their guys.
My God.
And then things would eventually get so bad for COF, they would not only be ineligible for any high school playoff games, but the Ohio Department of Education stripped them of their school registration. They cited the school could not be located and student attendance could not be verified.
My God.
Oh my God. And, like, there's actually, like, it seems like more and more keeps coming out as we're recording. Like, this is some other stuff it was sketchy from day one. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like,
yeah. It's got to be one of the more insane. Like, I saw someone say, "Can't wait for the documentary in 5 years." Like, this is the next. What was it? What was that Fire Festival or whatever it was? This is that with like college or high school football.
So, like, they have a website. Have you gone to this website?
Yeah, I clicked it. The Bishop Sycamore one.
Yeah, it's bishopsycamore.org. So, like, it's kind of funny because, like, I've done like a lot of web design. And this is like just a generic WordPress page. Like it reminds me of like you'll have these like fake news websites who will just like create posts like for the sake of creating them with like the most generic like stuff just to not necessarily to like have any content, but just to like support or make their like fake news posts look more like legitimate. Like, to kind of present themselves as, like, a news organization. So, like, I don't know. It's just, like, this weird, like, I don't know. Like, this weird blog. Massillon Tigers versus Columbus Bishop Sycamore. Like, it's just so weird, too, because it's, like, they only had black uniforms. But there's a video of them in white uniforms, too. I actually don't see... There's one, like, are they using just generic photos? Because there's one photo in this post that says, like, Bishop Sycamore welcomes Zeke Healy, linebacker and slot back, dude is 5'11", 205, but they're in green uniforms. Like, I really feel, it just feels weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
They got a camp page.
Wait, say that again?
They got a camp page, like a camps May 9th
yeah,
rival camp series, invite only. June 1st travel day to University of Georgia. What's also weird is like half of it's unbold and half of it's bold, so like it doesn't look legitimate. There's no formatting. The staff page is blank.
None of this is.
Oh my God.
No, like
the About Us page is blank, but that could just be that it's blank.
this has got to be like the biggest. Like I want to know. I want there's going to be a big investigation into this.
Oh my god!
And it's funny because whatever these people were getting away with, they're not going to get away with it anymore because ESPN. ESPN actually might be a hero in the end here. Which if they do, oh my god, I love ESPN.
Should I comment on their website?
No, don't. Why are you always so weird about them? Why you gotta? You're ridiculous. All right, well. No, but it is kind of crazy. Like, I can't believe this is happening. But, man, it's kind of cool to see it happening live. And like I said, can't wait for the documentary in like a couple years because I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, especially since Netflix has been buying everything they want. Like, I could pitch a film. I could pitch a film. I could pitch a film to Netflix and they'd probably take it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Isn't that the joke?
Anyway,
so I wanted to build off of something, and this is I was actually thinking about this too because I feel like I didn't care about it like last week when you talked about it, but then it affected me. You were talking about like starters in the preseason, stuff like that. And we carried on a good conversation. Like, it wasn't like I didn't care. Like, I offered an opinion. Like, we, worked it out. Like, from there, it was actually a pretty good segment. But it wasn't something that I've been like personally invested in. And then someone tweeted out something about how like J.K. Dobbins and didn't he get hurt? Wasn't he the guy? Or something like that.
J.K. Dobbins literally is out for the whole season.
Right, which sucks, right? Like, that sucks. And someone
tore his ACL, he's done.
And someone was like,
which, by the way, is really good for the guy who picked up Gus Edwards in round like fucking 13 in his fantasy draft.
And someone was like, would you rather this happen in week 1 versus now? And it's like,
yes.
Yeah, I would, because the game counts.
Week 1 is meaningful football.
Right.
It counts.
Like,
that's all that matters. Like, obviously, I don't want anyone to get injured, but if an injury is going to happen, it's worse when that injury happens in a game that does not matter. It matters in zero way. Like, the players need to do it to get up to speed. They're professionals. Like, unless they're rookies, they will get up to speed. The play is always sloppy in the first couple weeks, regardless of preseason play.
I mean,
the preseason is literally to figure out who your backups are.
Because
that's what every team uses it for.
Well, and another thing too. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, are there position battles exist anymore? Like, usually you could tell who the better guys are, and like they're also.
I think like on the Lions, I think it's happening. I mean, they cut Perriman today.
Well, right, because they have to shorten the
They literally
the
gave
roster.
him guaranteed money. Well, the thing is, they gave him guaranteed money
did they really?
to like be a player, and they said, and he got to camp, and he was not good.
No.
And they went, you know what? This was a mistake. We're gonna go with the younger guys, like Quintez Cephas and Amon St. Brown, who's a rookie this year, and some of the younger guys, because they said, hey, he's not cutting it. We're gonna pick the best guys on the field, and I have to give Detroit some credit for that. I think it takes a lot to sign a guy and basically burn the money. Now, it doesn't count against the cap or anything like that. So, it's not like it doesn't affect the Lions other than like the Lions organization is $1 million like poorer, but like I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean it's almost like akin to like in the sense of like I don't know, like say you there's a player on a team you like give a shit about or something like that. I don't know, like a star player, and this is a couple weeks before the season starts or preseason starts, or they're supposed to report to camp. Like, you got a guy that, like, I don't know, say he falls down the stairs or goes skydiving or some shit like that. I don't know, like hurts himself, like doing some sort of physical activity. And you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why did you just do that activity when it's like risky, or something like that? I don't know, like you'd be pissed at him, right? Like, you'd be pissed at a guy that goes out and goes like hiking or I don't know, like just some sort of like strenuous, risky activity before a season starts or something like that. Like, yeah, you be pissed at him if he gets hurt doing that thing, because there's no reason for him to be doing that thing. And I mean, it's the same thing, right? And I understand, like, there's practice, and I know you were bringing that up earlier, how you can get the same kind of information from practices. And injuries happen at practice all the time, but yeah, that's practice. Like, that shit happens, but like, it's a lot less, like, games are a lot more stressful on the body. It just because they're games and they're competitive, you're competing for something, like, whereas practices are like, they're not like, there's a reason why scrimmages exist. There's a reason that scrimmages exist, and they exist because it kind of puts you in a competitive atmosphere. And I know football and baseball aren't the same, but even in baseball, like, scrimmages are not like the same, because like oftentimes, like, you'll find, like, it's a lot different. It's a lot more stressful when you're actually trying in a full game. And that's, I think, the thing is, like, in preseason, like, you're trying to prove something, and because it's on TV and it's like a whole thing. But like, yeah, it's different. It is different if he gets injured last week of preseason versus week 1, because week 1's an actual game that counts on the record, and that I would rather have him get injured then, even though it's the same result.
It's the same result, but at least you don't ask what if at that point. You don't go, well, what if we didn't play? Like, now, like, the Ravens are like, what if we didn't play him? And what if their running game is awful this year? They're going to be saying, well, what if we didn't play him in that last preseason game?
Right.
Could that have been the difference between making the playoffs and not? Like, you're second guessing yourself now for basically, the entire year, because you made a boneheaded decision and played a starter for whatever reason in a preseason game. He never should have been on that field.
And I feel like I don't understand how people also don't realize that if you play more, there's a higher chance you get injured. Like, it's the same shit with driving,
especially
right?
in the NFL.
I've only ever been in 2 accidents in my life, okay, driving wise, and they were both during Lyft trips, when I was a rideshare driver, like, because I was putting 40,000 miles on my car a year, compared to, like, on average, I, like, not driving for Lyft, it was about 20,000. So you double the time that you're in the car, you're going to double the chances that you're going to get injured. You're going to get into an accident. Same thing with playing. Like, you play more, it's going to be more likely that you get injured. And I'm not talking about just playing time in the regular season, but just in general. Like, you play 3 added games. That's why people are always arguing against, like, adding too many games to the NFL schedule. Like, I think 17's fine, but you kind of go over that. Like, you kind of get into a territory that's almost like that's why college players don't play as many games as the NFL players do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly why.
It's just like, I don't know. The preseason is a mess, and I understand.
I think there should just be 2 games.
2. Yeah, 2's fine. And, this kind of leads to my next thing. Is like, if you can figure out who your 53-man roster is from 2 games. Because, like people are like, I find it so funny that, like, teams are cutting players today, and, like, they're freaking out. Like, the Lions cut Terrell Crosby, who is one of their right tackles. And he was pretty good last year. Like, he's a backup, but he was pretty good. He started some games and was serviceable, but he got cut this year because guess what? He looked like shit in the preseason. He looked like shit in camp. And this is a new regime trying to make good decisions, and they decided to let him go. And I see everyone acting like this dude, Tyrell Crosby is not, no offense to the guy, but he's not exactly like some elite superstar tackle.
No, not at all.
He's just, a backup tackle. He's, offensive line depth. And if depth players and bench players don't play well, cut them. See you later. Bye. I'm sorry. Like, as a depth player, you don't get time to develop.
No, and in the NFL too, it's a lot more, like, instantaneous. Like, if a guy's good or not. Like, you can tell.
Yep, exactly. So, I think I just can't believe that there's people who freak out over these. Like, no, these guys getting cut, none of them are starters. Like, maybe there's going to be one or two, and those would be like the more interesting stories. But anyone who's acting like their team's cutting their third string offensive tackle is a big deal we all need to calm down. We all need to calm down just a little bit, all right? We need to calm down just a smidgen. I also can't stand people who act like the preseason is like an indictment of how rookies are going to do. Like Penei Sewell has kind of struggled a little bit in this preseason. And by struggle, like he's adjusting. He didn't play football in 2020. So he hasn't played football in 2 years, and now he's playing at a professional level. Like I'm willing to give him some time. He's reacclimating to the game, and he's young. Rookies always have a tough time because the NFL does move so much faster than college does. People are like writing him off like, oh, the Lions made a mistake. They shouldn't have drafted him. They got a bust in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, everything is
guys,
faster paced, too.
We need to calm down.
We
need to calm down.
I forget which documentary I was watching.
He hasn't played an NFL snap yet, like a real NFL snap. No. That means something.
No, and I think it's always interesting. Like, you hear all about that with, like, quarterbacks, right? Where, like, sometimes I wonder, like, if certain quarterbacks... Because oftentimes, quarterbacks are only given one chance to prove that what they're worth is what they're worth, and then they spend the rest of their careers as, like, a bench player or whatever. I mean, usually you could tell, though, like, once you find out, like, what the tangibles and the intangibles are with certain guys. But, like, oftentimes they're only given, like, one or two, like, chances to really show, like, what they are. And, I mean, that goes for, like, all positions in the NFL. Like, you only get an X amount of time. Like Shea Patterson... Like what we were talking about earlier, like he was signed by the Kansas City Chiefs, reported to camp, he fucking sucked, and then he got cut by the team.
See you later, bye.
Like, yeah, I don't think that Shea Patterson gets on another team. Like, at first I was thinking, like, yeah, maybe he's a backup, not even good enough for that. Like Chad Henne, dude was Michigan God, and he was a backup on Kansas City. I don't think that Shea Patterson is gonna win anyone over. The maximum, like, fourth starter, like fourth string. But I don't know, like, it's just, I don't know, just the mentality certain guys have. I also feel like a lot of that stuff is like an overreaction. Like, nobody's really thinking with their head, and I don't know. It's just guys, like, they want to be smart, they want to look smart. So, like, I get that. What's funny?
It's just
between you and I is I always think it's funny, like, because I give a shit about baseball, like, a lot, and, like, I always look at other people, and this is no offense to anyone that disagrees with me. Like, people could disagree, and I think it's important for anyone to think critically and acknowledge, like, other people have opinions, but sometimes I just look at some things upon, like, first reaction, and I'm like, you're a dumb shit. Like, I'm like, sorry. I mean, you're an idiot.
That's me on most of sports Twitter, if I'm being real.
Right.
And, like, I'm not saying I'm never wrong, man, but, like, I'm right about a lot of things. I have a good amount of sports knowledge that when I make an analysis, I typically at least have reasoning behind it.
Right.
And even if I'm wrong, I still don't feel bad about it, because when I made my analysis, that was, in my opinion, the best analysis at that time. So, like, for me, my analysis here is it just doesn't matter. Like, I don't care about who the 53rd man on the Lions roster is, because he's never going to see the field anyway.
Right.
Like, everyone's talking about, like, the backups at Detroit. And I'm like, am I the only one that just doesn't care? Like, we have Jared Goff as our starting quarterback. The offense is going to be bad.
Yeah, there's probably people who think that Goff is like the guy.
For a playoff opportunity. We're not going to be fighting for a playoff opportunity where having a good backup is going to help us, like, make a playoff. If, like, Goff gets injured for a couple weeks, like, that, like, kind of what happened to Drew Brees, like, last year or 2 years ago, where he got hurt and Bridgewater came in, I think was his backup at the time, and played really well in, like, 1, 2, or 3, like 3 of the 4 games he had to play.
Yeah.
And people were like in an instance like that, it's good to have a backup.
Right.
But Lions aren't winning anything. Like, can we our backup QB doesn't matter. I don't need to. I don't care about Tim Boyle versus David Blau. Like,
no,
it doesn't. It just doesn't matter.
No, and yeah, I mean, there's probably people who, like, if you look at the Lions, like, there's probably people who, you know, because Matthew Stafford was so polarizing for so many people in the city, and there's probably people who were not fans of Stafford, who now, like, think that he's, like, now that he's gone, like, the Lions can do something. And it's like, no, like, I don't think that people understand how much of it.
We did not. We downgraded at quarterback.
Yes, I don't think people understand that that's a downgrade. Like, I think once week one.
Do,
no, most people probably do.
But those people drink the Kool-Aid every year.
But some people are going to watch week one and they're going to be like, wow, this is worse. Like, they're not going to realize how good Stafford was. And I'm not saying that Stafford was like some great god. Like, I don't think that he was. I don't think
but he was a damn good quarterback.
No, he's good, but I don't think he's top 10. You know, but that's just me. I mean, of active quarterbacks. But I think he's just outside the top 10. But again, that's just me. But also, I don't think, like, I don't know. I think obviously Stafford's better than Goff. I don't know how you don't think that.
I don't. Like, is there anyone, do you think, that thinks otherwise on that?
People that have only, I don't know, how do other people experience the NFL? Because usually I'll watch, like, one game at 1, then one game at 4:30, and then, like, that's my football for the day. Maybe I might flip between, two.
No, here's the thing.
Teams.
I feel like if you're a fan who just watches your own team and you don't really follow the rest of the NFL that deeply,
right?
You maybe think Goff is like, oh, the Lions would be okay with Goff. The guy went to a Super Bowl,
probably,
and not really realizing the factors that led to Goff going to a Super Bowl,
right? And in the NFL, it's easy for a team to walk into one. He had needed that system
to work for him, and it did, and he does not have that system here.
No, and so, because this is what they were saying too, is that, like, you look at Stafford and you look at Goff, like, I think when you had Goff in LA, he was in a system where, like, he needed, like, he wasn't enough for that system. And now you have Stafford in LA.
Let's be real. He went to a Super Bowl. He was enough for that system. They just like the Rams got out coached in that game.
That's true.
He was enough because McVay was that good that
right.
Game. That was.
But I think the Rams now might be have the benefit of this, right? Because, like, now you have like a quarterback who, like, I think that McVay isn't going to have to, like, support the like, I don't think that he's going to need the help. Like you had Goff, like, he needed more help than Stafford does. So I think that now you have Stafford, who's not going to need as much to do, like, X, Y, and Z with X, Y, and Z talent. But whereas, like, with Goff, on the other hand, like, Goff doesn't have that help anymore. And so, like, now I think Goff is going to kind of, like, I don't know, like, I don't think he's going to be, like, I don't know what it's going to be like. You know what I mean? Like, in LA, you kind of had this luxury of, like, a good system, like a good coach. Like, you had all this. And now you go to Detroit and you realize that you're going to need to help yourself more than you've had to do.
You might have a good coach, but he's untested. Let's be real.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, you don't have that talent.
But you don't have the talent.
No, not at all.
You don't have the infrastructure.
No.
You don't have the defense.
And you don't have the structure.
There's nothing.
No, you're basically like you are foundation one. Like, you are, like, you are showing up and they're building a house, and you know what they've put in so far? The sign that says I'm building a house. That's it. Like, you're the foundation here, and, like, that's going to be so much different.
They've ordered the concrete.
They've ordered the concrete.
They got the draft. Well, I think after this year, we will see. I think the foundation will be laid.
Yeah.
And we'll see how good it's going to be.
Right. I'm trying to get myself to a Michigan State game this year. Maybe I'll go to the one. Who do they play in who do they play? They play someone. Youngstown State. Maybe I'll go to that game. Youngstown
I'll go to the tune-up game, so at least they win. Yeah.
Yeah, so that
my dad's friend has Michigan tickets, so we always go. He always gives us tickets to the Western Michigan game or something like that.
Yeah.
So no shame. Final thing before we go, Brad. Does Michigan State beat Northwestern this weekend?
No, absolutely not. Like I don't know.
I'm gonna predict that they do.
You really think so?
Say
Okay.
This is the first upset.
Oh my god. I would if I had money.
The
I
Mel
would
Tucker
bet.
era
I'd take
is
that
here. Oh well, we'll have to see. And who
I'll
gets
bet you
bragging rights,
$1
the
that
show.
they don't win.
I will take that bet gladly.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Well, everyone, we'll see you all next week, and we'll let you know the status of that bet. And until then, enjoy your sports, make free throws, all that good stuff, and we will see you next week.